everyone, welcome back to the channel. I hope that you are well and looking after yourselves. It's really nice to sit down and film a tarot video, really. I actually said that I was going to film this video on Instagram quite a while ago now, and then life has just, you know, been what it's been. So I wanted to share some decks and a spread that I've been using for inner child work. Essentially, it's been like a long process for me. If you've watched my channel before, you'll know that I've practiced a lot of shadow work for a long time. This was very much something that I practiced before I even knew what shadow work was, vocab for it, and I've practiced it in a number of different ways. I would love to do a video about shadow work specifically in the future, kind of a how-to, as well as more in-depth about my experiences with shadow work, etc. in the future as well. But this is more about the work that I've been doing recently around shadow work for the inner child. I wanted to share some decks that I found really supportive for me during this time, and a spread as well that I've created. I've created a PDF graphic for the tarot spread and featured it on my Patreon for both tiers. So if you want to get hold of that, you can go over to Patreon now and find that there. I'm really excited to share this with you because it's a spread that I've been developing over the last few years. I've been using a similar spread as a shadow spread for a while as well, and it's something that's really supported me through a lot of it. So first of all, I wanted to share a couple of decks that I found incredibly supportive during this time, and towards the end I want to share a few other decks that I think work really nicely for this work as well. Let's just get into it. I have always loved this deck, the Nicoletta Ceccoli Tarot, for shadow work and inner child readings. I have of course used the Rider-Waite-Smith, which if you've watched my channel you'll know is my go-to. I've just gotten so much out of this deck from the get-go, and I've had this for a number of years now. I can't remember how many years, but it was a long time ago when I edged the deck, which I really like, in gold. I get a lot from working with this deck. I find it really comforting as well as confronting, which is quite important, I think. So that's the deck I want to use for the reading. So I am going to shuffle the cards. The deck is currently shuffled with reversals in it, which is exactly how I like it. I'm just going to shuffle it off screen to just set the energy. So I'm going to set the intention that this reading is for a kind of example reading and to share whatever comes up. So the first prompt is, what is my inner child trying to tell me? So that's the reversed energy of the Three of Coins. I feel that the energy of this reversed Three of Coins is pointing to a lack of feeling of support and collaboration in terms of everyday life, really, I think. And the way that she is sitting on that mushroom and the caterpillar, it's very Alice in Wonderland, and this feeling that not everything is as it seems, and there's a lot of kind of speculation, assumption going on, potentially doubt and judgment. Feeling like there's a lack of support in terms of like a network around oneself, and feeling like you're alone and vulnerable, and it's like herm energy in a way, but in kind of in a enforced sort of way rather than like it's a choice. So the next prompt is, what is my inner child afraid of? What is my inner child afraid of? And again reversed. So that's the reversal of the Knight of Coins. Afraid of being abandoned, afraid of being betrayed, and there's like a lack of loyalty there, a lack of substance, maybe like a lack of feeling secure in one's root and connection because of circumstances. So there's that fear there of being abandoned and that fear of being alone. Again, there's like an Alice in Wonderland feel because there's the lollipop there, and it says hate me. It could also indicate the potential kind of sabotage of something real and physical out of fear, but I really feel that it's a fear of being hated, being abandoned, being betrayed. So the next prompt is, what memory, trigger, shadow is this connected to? The Fool. Okay, that was right way up. So I feel like it's definitely connected to the vulnerability and like the youthful energy and the feeling of showing up with authenticity and like no fear, just being free and liberated and like kind of idealistic as well, like about the way in which you approach life. It's like a really beautiful, youthful side, and it's like showing, she's revealing her face behind the mask, and it's like her true self, and she's really, really vulnerable in that way. And at the same time, there's the bird in the cage, and it feels like there has been some pain. So there's this like fear of rejection as well, but still a absolute determination to be oneself. So I think the shadow here is the fear of not being enough, not being likable, being too much, and not being what people want. So attempting to kind of keep something locked away, but there's just so much vulnerability anyway in being authentic and being genuine and showing up as you are. It's a really beautiful thing, but there's that fear there because of past pain. So the next prompt is, how can I release, work through, or face this fear? So this is the Ten of Coins. There's so much earth energy here. And again, it was reversed. So, 10 of Coins. So how can I release, work through, or face this fear? Oh, I just realised I put that upside down. The 10 of Coins reversed. How can I release, work through, or face this fear? I think perhaps it's looking at the ways in which we may have like put so much of value into certain connections which have not been actually nourishing. And that merry-go-round looks like candy, you know, it feels like that, you know, like where you have like, I don't know, your favourite sweets or chocolates or whatever, and you just get into them and it feels so delicious at the time, but then it's just not nourishing at all. And it's like, it can look like there's so much abundance, but it's just not nourishing. And so I feel like the way to release or work through the fear and the pain is to be real with yourself about like the truth and what has actually gone on, like what's actually happening, what's actually occurring, the facts, rather than assuming, making assumptions, jumping to conclusions without catastrophizing, without kind of blaming yourself, you know, to actually examine the facts around a situation. And then what is an assumption, like look at what is an assumption, but what you know to be fact. And then to face the fact that potentially what looked like, I don't know, like a golden castle, it's really not. It's kind of time to get off the merry-go-round. Look at that. She's like, no, I'm done. Get on off this merry-go-round of like playing games and, I don't know, this falseness. I'm really getting this like, yeah, from the sugary sweetness and the just the false feeling around it, like it's some palace, but that's actually just a mirage or something, and that actually what is there is like a shack that's just been left like and abused and not cared for, not nourished, and it's just it's time to get out, you know, and it's time to be real and to remove the rose tinted glasses and to look with fresh eyes and to look at the facts without catastrophizing, without blaming oneself, and just be real about it. So the next prompt is, what does my inner child need to learn or understand? And we got 2 cards, and this is a good example of how I like to read with tarot. If I get 2 cards that come out, I read them both, and I think in my previous reading this happened too. So what does my inner child need to learn or understand? So we have the 9 of Coins again. This is so beautiful, this message. This is a clear demonstration of how this deck works and how beautiful it is. And I'm going to go on a segue here, like how this deck really supports this kind of work, because it is beautiful and vulnerable because of the little girl throughout and the kind of childhood imagery, but it's not playful and silly. It's really heart-wrenching, and so it works so beautifully for this. But having said that, I do have kind of a lack of like fun decks in my collection, and that's something that I have talked about for a while, but I'd really like to remedy soon. But as I said, this is an example of how I think this deck is just so fantastic for inner child work, because this just speaks right to the issue. What does my inner child need to learn or understand? And you have the Strength card and the 9 of Coins. I just want to look at the 9 of Coins first. And she's sitting there and she looks like she's in Swan Lake, and she's sitting on a beautiful chair and she's alone, and it's simple, a simple background, but she looks abundant and she looks blessed. She looks okay. She looks safe, nourished and whole and safe, you know. Her eyes look sad, but she's got the swan, and it's like this companion animal. But this is the 9 of coins, and it's such a beautiful card. I've always liked the 9 of coins because it's not necessarily about saying, okay, I've got everything I need now and I don't need to try anymore, but there is this energy of just stopping to smell the roses and being able to just sort of look at how far you've come and how well you've done and how beautiful and abundant your life is, and that clarity around it. And for me, with that card, I feel like I just have everything I've ever wanted. And then there's that sadness that comes in. And so then the strength card, obviously, it is just so poignant. I mean, actually, that little creature looks so small. It's kind of strange because I sort of feel a bit sorry for it. It looks like it's got a bunny face, but it's also a dragon. I mean, I hate the idea that the dragon's being slain, but you get the imagery there, and this idea that, you know, these thought forms that are unhelpful and painful, that good-heartedness, that genuineness, that standing in integrity and sovereignty will always win over. To remain in that. And it's like, it's just saying, you know, what does the inner child need to understand? It needs to understand that it's safe. It's done so well. This is not about them, and that they have got this. You know, it's like, you've got this. There is nothing that's going to take you away from, you know, what you've got, what is meaningful to you, what you value, and what is powerful and potent and what brings value to your life, you know. And also there's the sovereignty side of it as well, because she's just alone here and she just looks very poised and graceful and elegant, and there is the sadness there, but there is this security in the sense of self and the security in who she is. And I think it's just a reminder that is the key. So the next prompt is, what does my inner child need to feel safe and comforted? And it's the reverse star card. So what does the inner child need to feel safe and comforted? It feels like just telling oneself that, you know, there is hope on the horizon and that there are better things, you know, that things will feel better, and that it's like there's a direction to go in. But it feels like you're not seeing it that way yet. It feels like there's a bit of a disconnect, and it feels like whilst you are being pointed in the right direction, there's still some sadness and grief that is holding you back. And so what does the inner child need to feel safe and comforted? I think it's going within, because I think that by going within and by establishing oneself as their own North Star and truly honouring their own needs, it can really get you to a place where you understand you're safe and that it's all going to be okay, even if you feel in the moment that you're not safe. I think it's holding that awareness, and also maybe just actually being in that environment again and looking up at the stars. You know, when you look up at the stars and you realise like how vast the planet is and how tiny you are, and it can actually feel quite dizzying to look up, but it's actually a really beautiful experience to realise how small you are. It's very humbling and just makes you very grateful and thankful. And so I think there's that gratitude there as well. And the gratitude really fosters that feeling of safety and comfort, as well as love, you know. And I know it might sound trite, but the more I feel one sends out the love, the more safe and secure and comforted and content one feels. It can just feel so beautiful to send peace and love to a situation, no matter how painful and hurtful it is and how horrid it is to go through. And obviously, I'm not talking about spiritual bypassing or toxic positivity, and I'm not saying to excuse bad behaviours, but I think that there is something in, you know, working through those things, yes, and there being time to work through those things, but then to feel safe and comforted within oneself, to just give oneself that love, and to, again, like, recognise how small we are and how vast the universe is, and to send out that feeling of love, and to know that you're not alone in the world, you know. The final prompt is, what practices will support me and my inner child with this work? Ooh, that's interesting. I feel like I really love the idea of embracing the devil in the tarot as something fun, and because it's upright and it's a question about supporting the inner child. I think it's got to be about indulging in the things that you love and find delicious or find pleasurable, and all of those delightful things to just indulge in. But again, I think that it has to be tempered. So what practices will support me with my inner child work? I think it's engaging with fun and play and pleasure and joy and abundance of certain things within reason, within moderation, you know. And I think that there is a time and a place to enjoy all kinds of pleasures, but too much of anything is never a good thing. And so whilst, yes, engaging in really enjoyable, pleasurable, fun things is something that I think is probably likely to help, I also think that it's perhaps about being a little bit selfish, and instead of focusing energy outwardly, but just to focus energy inwardly in a really positive way, in a really nourishing way. I personally have been connecting with the folkloric witch's devil quite a lot recently, and I first had an encounter a year and a half ago now with a certain male deity who I wasn't sure, but I feel that maybe it was the witch's devil actually coming to me in a slightly different form. And it was interesting because at the time I thought it was one particular deity, but they didn't look like that deity. And I thought it could have been another deity, I remember, at the time as well. Like literally during the vision, when it was happening, I had the cognition that I think it's this deity, but also it's this deity. So it was like both at once. It's only been this last year while I've been working with the folkloric devil that I've considered that actually it might have been the folkloric devil in those guises, and sort of seeing if I would be comfortable with any of those. I mean, of course I'm comfortable. I think this is really interesting, and I also think that it's perhaps just a go card that, you know, that is something that is going to be nourishing, that is something that is going to be awesome. Propelling oneself into practices that make you feel good is definitely something that is worth doing. So that is the spread. I hope that you enjoyed it, and as I said, if you would like to download a PDF so that you can print it off, you can do the spread as well, please do come and join us over on Patreon. It will be on both tiers, so you can either join the support level or the Stars and Moon, which feature my new and full moon forecast PDF workbooks with a lot of shadow work and different journal prompts and shadow work prompts, and as well as all the aspects, the energies, the themes, and how to work with the aspects, whether or not they're benefic of nature or slightly malefic of nature or considered to be. I also feature information about the folklore around that particular moon, as well as a detailed shadow work section, and then practices and rituals to engage with at the time, as well as herbs and crystals to work with, and a custom tarot spread as well with a PDF for that. So very, very long, very, very detailed. I put a lot of heart and soul into them, and there's a lot of shadow work in there. So if you're doing this work, I often find that they kind of lead on from each other. Yeah, it just works really well. So if you would like to do that, please do come over. So now I've shared the spread, I want to share some other decks with you that I've been using. So I'm going to leave the spread there because I wanted to share these two decks. So this deck was kindly sent to me by Blue Angel, and I was thrilled to receive it because it was exactly what I needed, I think. The backs are just gorgeous. The funny thing was that I hadn't ever really looked at this deck before and wanted it. It was just that I knew this is something that I needed. So it says blessings and messages for times of solitude and isolation. So I want to pull a card for this particular reading that I've done. There is a little bit of that sort of stickiness on the cards. I haven't done this with any of my decks yet. I know recently Benabel Wen did do a video about how to create a special powder so that you can get rid of that. So this says the ending that opens the space for beginnings. And isn't that just beautiful? Because I feel like that is definitely what was echoed in this one. That hope and that opportunity, but also that knowing that it's all within yourself, and that one painful thing coming to a close, it will end up being probably quite a good thing in the long run. So I really like that. And then I would like to share this deck as well, which I had to pick up. I have been absolutely lusting after Jasmine Beckett Griffiths' artwork for a few years. I've got quite a few Lucy Cavendish decks, but this is my first deck with the art of Jasmine Beckett Griffith. And, you know, I think I'll probably get more. This is just stunning. It's incredible. This is a truth teller. I know that Racine has shared this deck a lot. So I'm going to ask to pull a card for this reading again from this deck. See what Le Vampires. Ah, here we go. Oh, the past is a prison. Oh my gosh. Bitterness, grudge, refusal to let go. And actually, there's two there. Anti-hero, maverick, risk taker, rule breaker. Oh my gosh. I feel like these cards absolutely make so much sense. Actually, what we're going to do, let's put it like that. So I think there is hurt there and feeling of betrayal. I would love to as well. Let's read the guidebook for this one. So this says the past is a prison. So this is Miss Havisham from Charles Dickens' Great Expectations. Left at the altar. Okay, so she's bitter. There's betrayal, so there is bitterness. There is a very, very long description, but it says here as a blessing, you now have a chance to free yourself from sadness and misery of another and to set a wonderful example of how to live freely without bitterness and regret. And again, I think that speaks to that love and that sending out that gratitude and that love and that peace, you know, because it really is empowering and beautiful. And the anti-hero, maverick, risk taker, rule breaker. It makes so much sense, this card. You are displaying to humans who are thinking too much in boxes with labels, and those who do good are not always going to fit a cultural stereotype. I think that's the thing. It very much goes with the Aquarius energy that we're having right now as I'm filming the Aquarius full moon. You're doing a good thing. It's unlikely you'll wear the garland of a hero or be recognised for any real contribution to the greater good. So you're not the kind of being who people acknowledge, but it's just been this way a long time. And I think it's definitely those who like march to the beat of their own drum or who refuse to conform because it doesn't align with them and it's not how they want to live. It's not genuine, it's not authentic. And I think that definitely that is a really, really key part of it. So I think that this has been really, really beautiful to share. I hope that you've enjoyed it. So I wanted to show you some of the beautiful cards in this deck as well, because I'm just in awe of it, really. Gifts of the Lonely Path. Your inner light will guide you. I just love these little creatures. A time for healing, that's most definitely it. Honour your holy days. Time to move on. Oh my gosh, it makes so much sense. Our shadows are beautiful. The Lonesome Gardener. The vastness of it all. Your little island. The constellation of isolation. I just absolutely love that. That is just so beautiful. I really, really resonate with that. From the below to the above. The return of the lost selves. There is one who watches over you. There are others like you. I really feel that definitely helps. Love forgives distance. To watch over you. Into your arms. When all seems ended. Realizations. The sadness of letting go. That makes so much sense. And is it lonelier at night? Do not hide your light. The truth comes softly. What did we lose? Ebbs and flows. Your presence is a gift to others. To walk the lonesome road. Drink from your own well, water your own garden. And yet the path grows lighter. A time to rest a while. A fortunate companion. Find your night self. Hope is like a hummingbird. The beneath opens up to you. Death moves among us. Between two worlds. A time to share. The learning of rights. So adorable. The littlest blessing. Plight of the wanderer. Your truth is powerful. The communion of tender souls. When you find that person or people going deep. Blessed reunion. The ending that opens the space for the beginning. And I just love that. It's so healing, so beautiful. And it really just epitomizes how these decks can just come to life for us, you know. They can really, really support us through some of the most challenging things. And I think this deck is so fantastic for inner child work specifically. But I think shadow work definitely is something that it can really help with. I want to read the ending that opens up the space for the beginning. You finally came to that place after so much grief and denial that it would be better for you to let go than continue to hold on. And so you did. You watched it leave, and it never once looked back at you or returned to your hands. Then you began to find a way back to the self you lost when all the energy was poured into the need to stay connected. A beginning is on its way, made more magical and beautiful because you made space for it. The self that held on so tight had no space to receive. Now you know that when you let go, space is made, and into that space will walk the wonder. Oh, I just absolutely love it. So good. So yeah, both Lucy Cavendish decks have been so supportive. I think this one is probably more supportive for feeling sad, but then the other one is just fierce. I just want to show you a few more of the Le Vampire. Death will come, compassion, nobility, discipline. We have sacrifice, transmission, eternal youth. Oh, I've got one stuck. Enlightenment. Some of these vampires are representative of different figures and characters. So I think that it would be really beneficial to definitely work with the guidebook for this one. I think there's more in the guidebook for Le Vampires than there is for Into the Lonely Woods. And I think that with Into the Lonely Woods, you can kind of work with it without looking at the guidebook. With certain decks, I don't tend to look that much at the guidebook. But this one I feel like is really important to go into that guidebook because there's so much meat in there. It will definitely clarify what is going on there. I mean, these are just fierce. Thirst, craving, compulsion, obsession, resurrection. And they are beautiful as well. And I feel like with this deck, they just look really good together. Look at that. Like, I really feel that looks so good together. They look really beautiful together, I think. So I'm not going to go through all the cards for that one because it will take ages. So these right here are like my go-tos for working with the inner child. And I have another deck that I've used quite a lot working with the inner child, and that is the Magdalene Oracle. And I've shared this on my channel before. It's Tony Carmine Salerno. And again, the guidebook is good. It's not as extensive as the Le Vampire. So again, I'm not going to show you all of the cards. But yeah, these for me just, they're so powerful, so potent. And I feel the urge to pull one of these in the evenings often. So this has been really, really beautiful. This often stays by my bedside, to be honest. I love this deck so much. And so I'm also going to share a few other decks that I think I really like for this kind of work, but that I haven't used as much as these ones. So we're getting to about that time, and I think this could work really well. This is the Halloween Tarot. I really want to get the big version of this, but if you're unfamiliar with this deck, it's full of this, like, very charming, very kind of like vintage, playful, childhood, Halloween imagery. It reads fantastically, just like a Rider-Waite-Smith really, except they've changed the names. But it's fantastic, it's so much fun. And yeah, it's like a favourite. I edged this one as well. I love this, especially during this season. And I think it would work really well for inner child work because of the way it looks. This is a really sweet deck that I bought thinking of Rosalie actually, and she does enjoy this, but I ended up loving it a lot as well. I also decided to keep this for myself because there were some messages that I just knew she wouldn't quite understand. They're a bit too nuanced, a bit too adult really. I really like these. They're very sweet, very kind of classic, beautiful fairy. So not like the Brian Froud fairies, which I also love, but there's a time and place for everything. So this is inspirational wisdom from angels and fairies. And there is a little guidebook as well. It's very cute. So I think that's really nice for the inner child. Next up is the Magical Unicorns Oracle cards by Doreen Virtue. This is very inner childy for me. And the messages are very sweet, and you know, it's a classic kind of Doreen Virtue deck really. It's just lovely unicorns, and you know, I think it is a really, really nice, sweet deck for the inner child, and that's not too harsh. You don't like Doreen Virtue, you don't have to have the decks. I like the decks because I think that they speak to something when I want to read them, but it's obviously a personal opinion thing. But these are lovely. The images are not my cup of tea, they're quite cheesy, but in a way I kind of embrace the kitsch cheesiness, and I am a bit of a sucker for gilding, even if it's this kind of gilding, and I love the backs as well. This is the thing I think for the inner child, that it has to be like what the inner child would have loved. On that note as well, I did want to give a shout out to two channels who have recently made some inner child videos for themselves. I know lots of people have made inner child videos that are really, really valuable to watch, but these were quite recent. Crochet Witch Tarot Krista was one that I saw most recently, I believe, and that was really an interesting perspective. And so I wanted to shout that out because it was about neurodivergence and inner child work, and I thought that that was such a great video. So I wanted to shout out Krista with that video, and also Rumour Haven as well. They shared a tarot spread of their own. It was a really great perspective because it was a perspective showing both the inner child and the outer adult, which I thought was really, really clever. And so the spread that they shared just incorporated that aspect really, really beautifully. And I also thought that that is something I would love to try, to pull a few cards for the adult side of myself to go along with an inner child reading, or maybe come up with a few extra prompts. I'm not entirely sure, but I wanted to shout that out because I thought it was a really clever way to look at the inner child. And of course, like, that inner child is always with us, and if we're an adult now, it makes a lot of sense to kind of bring them together and talk about them and think about them at the same time. I really loved that, so I'm going to link to their channels below. The Spirit Cats, this is just a beautiful deck. It's comforting and sweet, and it gives you kind of, I guess, what you need. I really, really love this deck, looking at the beautiful cats, lovely, each one unique, and on the back there's a little description about each cat. It's just a lovely, lovely, lovely deck. It's so beautiful, so comforting as well, so perfect for the inner child. So then the Mother Mary Oracle, I think that this is beautiful because, again, it's got that gentleness. There's the roses on the back, which are very much powerful and important for me. The imagery is quite mature, but I still think that the messages that come from this and the fact that it's Mother Mary is just so incredibly comforting. I really enjoy this deck, especially if you are looking to feel comforted from a kind of motherly deity. It's very, very comforting. I actually need to keep this out, I think. I really need to work with this, like, right now. I'm feeling it, I'm feeling it. Oh my gosh. I think I might like to work with this with the Tarot of the Black Madonna as well, because that is incredible, that deck. And the guidebook for this as well is incredible. Alana Fairchild is great. Some of the decks I just adore. Then I have another Doreen Virtue deck, surprise, surprise. Guardian Angel. I remember way before I got this, when I was trying to get this, I saw Lisa Papez talking about this deck and how she likes to pull from this deck in the evening because it can be really, really comforting. And I think that, like, it definitely is. And I wouldn't call this a tarot. It's definitely like an oracle for me. It is one that I would really be interested, especially because there's such a lot of this kind of classic kind of vintage imagery I feel was just all over my childhood, you know, in prayer books and fairy tale books and, you know, stories and things like that. And it's very romantic, it's very idyllic, it's very fairy tale. And because, again, it's a Doreen Virtue deck, I really think it's gonna sing. I would also like to mention, as kind of honorary mentions, that I would also love to use the Angel Tarot and the Fairy Tarot by Doreen Virtue, but I've shared those recently. I shared them in, I think, the decks I used the most last year. I decided not to include those again this time because I've shared them so recently, but I would use those for inner child work as well. I have then a Fairy Oracle by Lucy Cavendish. There's a lot of Lucy Cavendish decks going on here. This would, like, speak to my inner teenager, you know, or my inner adolescence, because the fairies are so beautiful and enchanting and captivating, but then the messages are very supportive and whimsical and fairy tale, and it kind of is a bit in between this and then, like, the Brian Froud, because, you know, you have other depictions that are a little bit more adult in this. Not adult in that way, but you know what I'm saying, a little bit more sophisticated, let's say, than these, which are very childlike and very innocent and sweet. And so you have that kind of energy that sort of bridges the gap. I got this so many years ago and I just loved it. I edged it with this, like, rose gold, which I just love. And then finally I have this deck by Karen Kay. This is Messages from the Mermaids, and this one is just so beautiful because it's, as mermaid decks go, this one is really nice and inclusive and more of a kind of contemporary deck in that way, that it has more awareness around that. So I really prefer it for that reason. And the messages are so clear, and just, again, though, there's that the mermaids look real because they have very real looking bodies. Obviously the art style isn't exactly like realistic, and they're of course very, very stunning and beautiful, but there's this fairy tale aspect to them, but then there's also a realism to them as well. It's not exactly realism, I don't know how to describe it. It's like, again, sort of a teenagery, I feel, deck. It's, yeah, because there's like love. I think it absolutely speaks to my inner adolescent, let's say. So that's Messages from the Mermaids by Karen Kay. So there we go. I am so happy that I was able to share these with you. Obviously, for the moment, we have the Nicoletta Ceccoli Tarot, Into the Lonely Woods by Lucy Cavendish, Le Vampires, again by Lucy Cavendish, and the artwork by Dan May and by Jasmine Beckett-Griffiths, and then Tony Carmine Salerno, the Magdalene Oracle. Like, these are my go-tos at the moment for inner child work, and I really want to explore more with the others. And there are probably some more as well that I've not delved into. I think that when you get to have such a big collection, it becomes kind of overwhelming to even figure out, but these have been so supportive, and I often, when I pick my decks, I feel very much into it, and it's like an intuitive thing, me picking. So this has been so powerful. I'm really glad that I was able to share this with you, because I've had this spray for a while and I've been using it and loving it, and it's been working really well for me, and I really hope that it can help someone else out there, and that you can see this video and it can support, because you can always go back through and write down the prompts or whatever. But if you'd like to have a PDF of the spread, then you can find that on my Patreon page on either tier. And I just want to say thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you are well and safe and looking after yourselves. Please give me a big thumbs up if you like the video. Share it with anyone who you think would also enjoy it. I've linked those videos below that I really enjoyed, so if you haven't yet subscribed, please do subscribe, click the bell notification. Do come and follow me over on Patreon, and that would mean so much to me. I also have an Instagram page where I share all sorts of stuff that I'm up to, so do come and follow me over there, and it'd be lovely to see you. So thank you again so much for joining me. Stay well and safe.